To restart is to start anew, or to resume after interruption. Restarting may be one of the hardest things for a creator to do. It needs you to realize that what you're doing is not working as you had hoped, and fueled by frustration and missing the intent. I imagine that this happens to everyone, regardless if you are a painter or a sculptor, a writer, heck, even a gardener. Restarting is something I am struggling to truly understand. But I think everyone does it unknowingly all the time. Whether it's sketching or losing in video games or relationships or even jobs. I hope that in sharing my thoughts and work process, it can help you, the viewer, the witness, and myself, of course. For me to understand this, which I probably still don't, I have to ask myself, what am I doing? Obviously, I'm sketching a character, a Star Wars character. What for? For amusement? For fame? Curiosity? I'll admit that my motivation shifts around a lot, you know, depending on the time of day and what I had for dinner or whatever. But I imagine that many creatives go through this thought process as well. But no one is saying that it can't be for all three, not more. At the end of the day, I'm just a guy sitting here just sketching endlessly, shifting in and out, closer and further away from what I intended. Like poking and chipping away a block of ice. Funny that I brought up ice. My process, like ice, slowly melts the longer I take. Every minute that goes by, the ice melts, changing the shape ever so slightly, becoming slippery and sometimes even harder to work with. But eventually it becomes water and you can no longer sculpt it. A smarter person would probably use something less temporary than ice, but hey, that's besides the point. Every idea, big and small, keeps finding its way, disrupting the flow, casting doubt, making me second guess every little decision. It goes back to what I said earlier about shifting closer and away and with what I intended. Every cool thing I see out there is sometimes a distraction. Like I was like, oh, I should implement this cool little emblem, or I really like that shape, or sometimes I sketch something out and I realize it looks too familiar with something else, and that becomes a real struggle. This is why having good reference, finding good reference is key. Good reference is key. I have a pose wearing a helmet, a pose and a helmet reference to the side here that I use as a guide. Good references can also help you stay focused. I admit that I'm very bad at this, but it it needs to be improved. It's something to work on. Limiting your scope and learning when you need to just get past something is something I think is quite vital as well. I lost count of how much work I've started and failed to finish, or eventually turn into something else completely different. I cannot really show you the reference as much as I would like to. I don't have the permission to share it willy-nilly, but do put faith that I have a reference image to the side. There's no way I can make something look this neat, cool, without a reference. I think ideas come in too cheap. It comes in cheap, but expensive to execute. Like, I would really love to design a cooler gun, add some grenade bandoliers, or I mean bandoliers with grenades in them, a medical pouch, and maybe some tubes, oxygen tubes, a laser scope, and a custom grip, and yeah, the list can keep going on and on. But at some point, I just have to cut it all out for the sake of getting it done. I took a break or two uh, in this entire process, and pausing and taking a break, had me realizing that the stance was a bit off. I didn't really like the angle, and it didn't actually match the reference that well. I could have stitched another recording here for continuity's sake, but the video is probably already going to be running for too long, and this is why some parts of the videos are going to be shortened. There are also many times I have restarted in the painting. I won't tell you when you should or shouldn't restart. I'm already a terrible judge for that. I'm already a terrible judge of that myself. Um, it is going to be entirely up to you, I suppose. Here's a drawing tip. Flipping the image is flipping brilliant. It helps me identify any weird balance problems that I may otherwise not see, getting you a fresh look of what you're working on. I highly recommend you to flip the image. If those old masters in the past could have had the ability to flip images while painting or drawing, I'll bet your ass that they would do that. Anyway, this type of humanoid I'm making an outfit for is from Star Wars, and I've noticed that they have a severe lack of proper headwear in the universe. You know, both the games and even the movies to some extent. So I thought this would be an interesting subject to try my hand on, my design abilities on. Yeah, I've witnessed that these poor aliens called Twi'leks, you know, they have their little head tentacles just eaten or disappear into the void every time they wear a proper helmet or a hood over it. This is mostly in games. So making a traditional human helmet with holes in it would probably look pretty weird, if not awful, to my taste and sensibilities. It would also not be very protective because, you know, like you have a whole organ exposed with these little holes. So I convinced myself that a better alternative is to make a taller and longer helmet that shapes over the head tentacles, kind of like a oversized mask. The design, I was inspired by the design used for Howling Banshees in 40K, Games Workshop's 40K. They wear these masks or helmets that need to accommodate their very big fiery red hair in the back of their heads. It's some kind of religious thing they do. I'm actually not entirely sure why, but it looks really cool. It's a symbolic thing. So I thought that we could adopt a similar philosophy here, and I think it works. Look, it also looks kind of alien. It looks familiar, but it looks somewhat alien. So I think it's pretty good. Yeah. Now the armor is kind of basic. Yeah, it is a bit uninspired, but yeah, if I were to restart, it would probably be because of the armor. So if I do restart, it wouldn't be anything too drastic. I would just, yeah, redraw up the whole armor, you know, use the same pose and things. So it's not a drastic restart, but it's still a restart, a setback. But I also think there's nothing wrong with basic. There's nothing wrong with basic. I can imagine this is like, you know, this Twi'lek or whatever they're called, alien is just a mercenary with modest means. So just scavenging, buying parts and whatever, and just coming up with it. You know, using whatever gear she can scrounge up. I think recording my work process is so far a pretty good idea. It puts some limitations and helps me stay more focused on the overall image shape thing, picture. Normally I would be zooming all over the place, sometimes losing sight of the overall image. But Recording this has forced me to keep the zoom, magnification at this level. I think it would help me analyze my own process better than any free critique I can get. I can always just find a good spot to stop and start over. But I do think that I should save my progress, even the mistakes. To reuse my weird analogy about chipping ice, I could just refreeze or freeze the water and try again. Or perhaps not. Maybe I won't continue with this. And that's okay. There's always another one I can start anew. To restart.
I thought it might be a good idea, just after Saturn, to have them take one last glance